Cartethyia Fleurdelys, the new Aero Goddess herself. Just as she has split herself into two forms, we shall be discussing the two queens in one, Cartethyia. But Cartethyia and Fleurdelys isn't the only thing that's being cut in half, because Cartethyia bisects the world. Your next banner pulls, she cuts it in half. Groceries too high? Cut that bitch in half. Rover needs to be in two teams? Cut her in half. No, wait, Fleurdelys, we need that one a lot. Cartethyia is the premium Aero Erosion Goddess and the main carrier of the Erosive Erosion team. And we'll be talking about her kit, echoes, weapons, and team options in this video. Long have we waited for our Aero Elf, whom also enjoys a good story, so let's start this story from within the void. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video, as that's the best way to help support the channel and let the winds unleash. Cartethyia functions as the main carrier of the Aero Erosion team, meaning her best teammates are that of Aero Rover and Ciaccona, but she's actually quite capable of performing on her own as well. Before we get into that, we'll need to talk about the major thing about Cartethyia. She's HP scaling, so all of her damage comes from HP. Pay attention to this, and I'll explain how to gear her later in the echo section because it is quite different. Another major thing that you need to know is how Aero Erosion works. The TDRL is just kinda simple. The more stacks of Aero Erosion that's on the enemy, the higher the damage that Aero Erosion will deal periodically. It's a damage over time. The higher the stacks, the more damage. Each time that you add another stack of erosion, then the stack is going to refresh, and you can keep up the Aero Erosion as long as you apply a stack every now and then. Alright, kit time, and Cartethyia has a lot to unpack. She's two characters in one, so let's first discuss Cartethyia. Cartethyia will be on field for three reasons: to inflict Aero Erosion, 1, to summon her 3 swords and get a massive buff, 2, and 3, to invoke the wrath of the Storm Goddess. Cartethyia grants a buff based on the number of swords that she's summoned and the amount of swords that are recalled. She summons those swords in 3 different ways: her heavy attack, her basic attack 4, which can be accelerated by using a dodge counter, and her resonance skill. She also inflicts Aero Erosion with her basic attack 4, her resonance skill, and her intro skill, but not from her heavy attack. Once you get all swords out, you can use an aerial attack, which causes her to plunge to the ground and summoning a sword and combining all of them. And this is going to grant a major buff for Fleurdelys once you actually swap into her by using her liberation. You also will automatically plunge after using her resonance skill, so you can actually do a cool combo that I'll discuss later. Those buffs that Fleurdelys can take advantage of are Interruption to Resistance, and her basic attack 4 will create a stagnation field, Aero Erosion Amplification, and enemies take erosion more often, and a certain hit from Fleurdelys' onslaught will trigger erosion and remove one of the stacks. Those are substantial buffs that you want to take advantage of before Fleurdelys hits the field. This buff is called Manifest and is pretty much going to be active at all times, because even when you swap back to Cartethyia, it's going to remain paused, so you'll pretty much always have it. Now, let's talk about the magic here, her liberation. Cartethyia will allow the arrow to flow through her veins, and out comes a tall, sexy Aero Goddess, Fleurdelys. Not only can she stay in this form indefinitely, but you are free to swap between Fleurdelys and Cartethyia, at least up until her gauge gets filled. So if you fail to get all of the blades, or you need to apply more Aero Erosion, you can easily swap back to Cartethyia midway through her entire rotation and get the rest. Although, it doesn't really matter, because when you get all the blades, they will remain active as long as you are on Fleurdelys. So a sample rotation would be to get all of the buffs on your other characters. In other words, get Aero Rover's sword passive active and then use her outro. Then you're going to go into Ciaccona, get her outro ready and sing her praises and apply more Aero Erosion. And then you'll intro into Cartethyia. When she does her intro skill, she will cast her heavy attack, gaining a sword. Then, you could follow up with a normal attack sequence, granting you that second sword, and lastly, you'll follow up with a resonance skill, granting you the final sword, putting you up in the air, and doing a regular basic attack will let her plunge down, and you'll have full buffs, so you can go straight into Fleurdelys with full buffs. And once you do, man, you will be good, because it's time to become the mincemeat cutter, because that's exactly what she's going to be doing. She loses 50% of her HP when she uses her liberation, but it is only 50%, and she will not go down past 50%. and when she actually uses her World Slicing Cut, she'll heal 50%, so she can actually be very self-sustaining. Because Fleurdelys will go crazy with all of her attacks, you can literally just spam whatever you want. You'll be doing basic attacks throughout her rotations, but she actually has a lot of unique attacks that she's able to do, and you'll be using her resonance skill, and that comes in parts. As you do these basic attacks and aerial attacks, it doesn't really matter what you do, as long as you are wreaking havoc, or rather, wreaking arrow, you'll be filling up her forte gauge. You're free to swap between Cartethyia and Fleurdelys before it's full to apply more erosion, or if you kill off a wave or something, you need to apply more erosion stacks. But once that gauge gets filled, you cannot swap back to Cartethyia. And a new nuclear option appears. Before you press that button, please bear in mind you want as much erosion stacks on the enemy as possible to get the biggest nuke. So if you want to take time to swap back to characters like Ciaccona to apply more stacks, then definitely do so before you let loose that world-ending cut. Ideally, you would have already prepped this beforehand, or have Ciaccona singing in the background and applying stacks as you do this. Now, some may say that when Cartethyia gets released, the combined might of millions of blades of howling squalls will be the pivotal force that bisects the entire universe, but once you let this bad boy loose, you will deal a significant amount of damage and remove all stacks of erosion, and leave the enemy split down the center. What a great day to enjoy the harvest. I finally got my family to help with the farming so that we can enjoy this great winter. It's going to be great to not be on the brink of starvation. Wheat and corn all year round. I may not be a noble, but it's a farmer's life for me. I couldn't be more happy. My leg! The crops! They're soaked in blood! So much blood! Oh god, she's dead! This isn't even my mom, it's half my mom! Father, you said you left 50% off. The corn! What is this? Why is the corn bleeding? Father! Why did you make us help you? Why couldn't we have just stayed inside? The fault lies with you, Father! The fault lies with you! Well then. Oops. Lastly, Cartethy's outro is actually pretty cool. She amplifies all arrow damage for her teammates when they hit them with a negative status. Unfortunately, it's only useful for arrow characters, but a decent boost I guess. She is really going to be only a mono arrow character. Now that we've sliced people, crops, and moms in half, let's cut that subscribe button too. Go ahead and subscribe if you're enjoying the video, and let's get right back to talking about her echoes. Cartethyia is the first HP scaling character, and that is going to severely change the way that we build her. Firstly, we are going to take advantage of the new set, Windward Pilgrimage. This set buffs arrow damage by 40%, as well as giving a 10% crit rate buff when you hit an enemy with Aero Erosion. An amazing set made specifically for not only Cartethyia, but also Aero Rover. Both of these characters want this set, but not just them. Any character that wants to take advantage of Ciaccona's Aero Erosion is going to want to use this new set because it is just that great. Although, you don't have to use other Aero characters along with Ciaccona, so it's up to you if you want to use it or not. Either way, for most of us, we got a lot of grinding to do because we do have to gear out 2 more characters. Now let's talk about how we're actually going to set this up. Since Cartethyia HP scaling, we won't be doing the traditional echo setup. Instead, we're actually going to be running a crazy setup. 4-4-1-1-1. Crazy, right? Cartethyia gets 0 benefits from attack. None at all. So the secondary stat of attack on the 3-cost pieces are literally useless. What she does benefit from is a 2280 HP that she gets from the 1-cost pieces, as that's going to increase her overall HP scaling tremendously. Along with that, you get to finally use 2 4-cost echo pieces, which will give you a massive crit stat boost. We should be getting at least 2 more Overlord or Calamity pieces for this new Echo set, at least that's what I hope, so this is the way that you actually want to gear her. Now, let's break down the stat priority. The potential to get 44% crit rate from just the Overlord pieces, I think it's actually best to run 1 crit rate and then 1 crit damage piece. You can go double crit on the 4-cost pieces, but you are definitely going to overcap if you actually reach the normal stat requirements that Cartethyia is going to require, at least by a little bit. and definitely a lot more if you get really high crit rate stats. So go 1 crit damage piece, then 1 crit rate piece, and then HP on all the other pieces. As for substats, prioritize crit rate and crit damage, then HP %, then basic attack damage, as she does a ton of basic attack damage. Flat HP is kinda useful, but it's just okay. When you're gearing Aero Rover, you want to grab the normal echo options. Crit rate on the main piece, the elite pieces will have attack % preferably for more healing, but arrow damage is also perfectly fine. And for the common pieces, they're definitely going to be attack %. Aero Rover does a decent amount of damage, especially in this team. And since she can't really buff Cartethyia, it's best to actually focus on her damage. You could still use the rejuvenating set to buff Ciaccona, and that's always an option, so you don't have to really prioritize building her with a new set, but it would be a little extra oomph in the team. Alright, time to pull out the holy saber that Cartethyia has inherited and talk about the weapons. It wouldn't be a 5-star character without making that character dependent on their weapon. Right. This is another scenario similar to Brandt, Yinlin, and Zani, where their weapon makes a world of difference. The Defier's Thorn is a substantial boost to Cartethyia's damage, thanks to it being a stat stick of 72% HP. It grants even more HP through the passive, and for 15 seconds after casting the intro skill, or simply performing a basic attack, which means it's going to be up 24/7, she will ignore 8% of the defense of the enemy. And as long as the enemy has at least 1 stack of erosion, then she's going to have a substantial 20% amplification when dealing any sort of damage to the target. This weapon is made purely for Cartethyia, and nothing comes close, so I definitely recommend getting it. Now, as for her secondary options, those of you who have the Red Spring, Camellia's weapon will actually get great use out of it. She is very much dependent on basic attacks, and this weapon is not only a crit rate stat stick, which lets you prioritize more crit damage in the echoes, but it also has a 30% basic attack boost to boot. You're really using this weapon for the crit rate and the little bit of extra substat that it actually gives you. Another surprising contender for a decent weapon is actually Brandt's weapon, Unflickering Valor. While the substat of 77% energy recharge is totally overkill, the bonus of the actual passive is going to give you 48% basic attack bonus, and you get a little bit of crit rate, so you're actually easily able to use the passive, and it's going to be at least a little bit helpful. Now, surprisingly, we actually have a 3-star option because all of the 4-star options are just so horrendously bad on her. This 3-star weapon, the Guardian Sword, gives her 30% HP, which is still better than all of the other options that I haven't mentioned here. Any other 5-star weapon you can actually use with her, such as the likes of Emerald of Genesis and Blazing Brilliance, but you're simply using it for a stat stick and the substat bonus of crit rate or crit damage. You're not getting anything else out the passive, so she kinda really wants your weapon, and luckily it's guaranteed, but it is a hard pill to swallow if you're short on Astrites. Good thing that she's solid in the perfect team either way, so let's talk about them. Cartethyia is the Aero Erosion Queen, and the Queen needs her knights, a bard, and the actual main character, Rover. These 3 complement each other so much that it is insane, but it is expected for the premium team. Rover raises the Aero Erosion cap from 3 to 6, and that increases the entire team's damage over time. Additionally, as long as they have the signature weapon equipped, they can amplify arrow damage by casting the Enhanced Resonance skill, which is a significant buff to every team member. As for Ciaccona, she also buffs arrow erosion damage, and by buff, I mean double it. And a lot of pieces of Cartethyia's kit is considered arrow erosion damage, so this will greatly increase her damage over the rotation. These 3 together make the premium arrow erosion team, but all is not lost if you don't have Ciaccona. While it may be significantly weaker, Sanhua is actually your savior here as she buffs basic attack damage, which Cartethyia is actually using. Without Ciaccona, stacking arrow erosion becomes rather difficult. Cartethyia does inflict arrow erosion during her basic attack 4 and her resonance skill, but getting it all the way up to 6 consistently along with retaining it when you're actually in Fleurdelys' form as she eats some of the stacks, that's kinda hard to do. You do, however, need Aero Erosion to be in the team because of how significant the damage boost is to Cartethyia when she has more stacks to work with. Leaving it at 3 max stacks and using another character is an option, but you really lose so much by not using Aero Rover because that extra stacks is literally doubling Cartethyia damage. Another team member that you can actually use with Cartethyia is actually Shorekeeper alongside Aero Rover. Shorekeeper does buff the team significantly, so Cartethyia and Aero Rover will get buffs to their crit damage so that they can hit a lot harder. This team is perfectly viable. Additionally, without Ciaccona, you need to basically spam her resonant skill off cooldown and incorporate a lot of Cartethyia's basic attacks. There's a way to actually kind of alleviate that, and here's how you do it. After you've prepped up Aero Rover, you've done their enhanced resonant skill and you're outroing out, intro into Cartethyia, and she'll apply 2 stacks of Aero Erosion here. And then she'll automatically cast her heavy attack, which gives her one of her swords. From there, you'll actually use her basic attack 4 to get 1 more stack, and then her resonant skill, which should put you at a healthy 5 stacks. Once you activate her liberation and get into your slashing business, midway through, you're going to swap back to Cartethyia and perform 1 more basic attack 4 combo. Another option, instead of spamming basic attacks on Cartethyia, is to actually swap to Cartethyia, then swap over to another character like Sanhua, trigger her outro, get the buff, and go right back into Cartethyia, and then she'll be able to get the buff and she'll apply another stack of erosion, and then you can swap back to Fleurdelys to actually finish it. You have the buff from Sanhua, and you're ready to go and deal a ton of damage. Either way, you'll be able to achieve the maximum stacks of 6 without even using Ciaccona, but this is almost impossible to do against multiple waves of enemies. If Cartethyia doesn't have Ciaccona, then she has to maintain her own Aero Erosion stack, so you need to spend a lot of time doing so. In order to use it properly, you're going to need a character that doesn't require a lot of on-time field. You could use a character like Sanhua, of course, as we mentioned, but you can also use someone like Alto because he's actually pretty good at getting his Concerto up, and he's a good buff for Cartethyia. Overall though, she is way weaker without Ciaccona. The Ciaccona amp is just that significant. This is quite similar to the situation with Zani and Phoebe, where Phoebe makes your Zani just so much stronger. I'd say it's honestly a 30% decrease in damage without Ciaccona, based on just how much Ciaccona actually buffs and accelerates Aero Erosion, just everything. It could even be more than 30%. I'll go over Cartethyia's reliance on Ciaccona and Aero Rover in another video very soon, so stay tuned. Cartethyia is such a unique and powerful resonator, but she is greatly held back despite being as free as Aero. She is shackled down to Aero Erosion, and she cannot escape it. Those shackles spread to Aero Rover because they are joint at the hip. The only real buffers that she can use currently is Ciaccona, and she does do decently with Sanhua and Alto, but nonetheless, in her designated team, she is phenomenal, and her gameplay is seriously fun. I don't know if we'll ever have a character that can outdo what her kit animation entails, so be prepared to give the world a sale because we're going to cut it in half, literally. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and subscribe. You've made it this far, so you've got to be enjoying the content, right? Go ahead and like the video while you're at it, and thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Enigma out.